The New England Patriots are continuing to make roster moves just 24 hours after their initial 53-man roster. Head coach Mike Vrabel said that this roster was going to remain fluid, meaning that changes were going to happen before their Week 1 regular season matchup against the Raiders, and that's exactly what they've done. Now, the New England Patriots, heading into 2025, have one positive thing going for them, and that thing is that they sucked in 2024. You might be saying, Colby, what do you mean that's positive that they sucked in 2024? We all got PTSD from the last two seasons. And look, I do agree with you guys, but the positive from that is that they're one of the first teams in the waiver wire priority. The New England Patriots, because they finished fourth worst in the NFL last year, they had the fourth overall pick. They are fourth in the waiver wire priority, meaning that any player that needs to go through waivers, the Patriots only need 3 teams to pass on them in order to bring them in. Now, one thing to note here, if the New England Patriots do pick a player off of waivers, they do also take the contract that they had with their former team. So in this case, the New England Patriots signing quarterback Tommy DeVito, the former New York Giants quarterback, and cornerback Charles Woods from the Los Angeles Rams. They're taking both of those guys' contracts also. Now, starting off here with Tommy DeVito, this is a guy that we've actually been talking about quite a bit over the last few days, really upwards to the week, after his pretty stellar performance against the New England Patriots in preseason week 3. At that point, Tommy DeVito, now again, this was against the Patriots 3s and 4s, so take from it what you will, but he lit up those Patriots 3s and 4s. Just a week ago, in that matchup against the Patriots, Tommy DeVito went 17 for 20 for 198 yards and 3 touchdowns. Us Patriots fans, we've been asking ourselves, can we really trust Joshua Dobbs to be the backup quarterback for this team? I don't know about you guys, but me personally, and you guys have seen me on record saying this, that I actually like the addition of Josh Dobbs. Is this a guy that you want to be your starting quarterback? No, but I think he's a good backup journeyman quarterback who, if he needs to start for you for a couple of games, can certainly be good enough in order to win you a few games. We saw that in his time with the 49ers and his time with the Vikings. I mean, the list goes on and on, but ever since Dobbs got here, he has been wildly disappointing. I mean, all the way from OTAs to minicamp to training camp, there were days that he would bounce back, but he'd only bounce back for a day and then go back to his old habits. I said this in my last video, but it doesn't matter to me if you bounce back from a bad day, but then you go right back to reverting to those bad habits, because it really just defeats the whole purpose of you having that bounce back day. Of course, that also translated to the preseason, and not in a positive way. Inaccurate passes, missing wide open guys, Efton Chisholm, Kyle Williams, giving hospital balls to multiple guys, including rookie wide receiver Kyle Williams, that gave him a concussion and has kept him out over the last few weeks, to where if the Patriots feel like Joshua Dobbs is not developing, then maybe they need a new backup quarterback behind Drake Maye. Now, when I did my 53-man roster predictions and I did my video about who their final roster was, at least the initial 53-man roster, I said that I wouldn't mind them targeting Tommy DeVito, but I think that they're going to roll into the regular season with 3 quarterbacks. It would surprise me that if by week 1 they release Josh Dobbs and this New England Patriots team is rolling with Drake Maye and Tommy DeVito. It is a real discussion. I mean, we like to talk about positional battles during the offseason, but there is a real positional battle going on behind the scenes at New England Patriots practice. And that's going to be going on this season when the team decides, all right, which quarterback, Josh Dobbs or Tommy DeVito, is the best backup. I don't think that they should carry 3 quarterbacks all season long, nor do I think that they will. But if they feel that Tommy DeVito is the better guy, they'll move on from Josh Dobbs. The reason they can't do that right now, or at least I wouldn't suggest that they do that, is because Tommy DeVito just got here, okay? Tommy DeVito has only been in the league for a couple of years. This is his 3rd year that he is now playing. He played in 2023, 2024, and now 2025. He isn't the veteran that Josh Dobbs is. He started in quite a few games, but he also doesn't understand this system. He's never worked under Josh McDaniels. He hasn't worked behind Drake Maye. He hasn't built chemistry with the rest of the offense. And we know that Drake Maye can be a little bit injury prone. With that being said, worst case scenario, and knock on wood, this doesn't happen, but if something did happen to Drake Maye in that first game against the Raiders and you needed Tommy DeVito to start for you, but he didn't have enough time to learn the playbook and build the chemistry, the Patriots are now putting themselves in a really rough position. But a little bit more here about Tommy DeVito. He's 27 years old. He was an undrafted free agent from 2023, played 2 seasons for the Giants, appearing in 12 games with 8 starts. He completed 65.3% of his passes for 1,358 yards and 8 touchdowns with 3 interceptions, while adding 227 rush yards and 1 touchdown. It's actually interesting because when the Giants released Tommy DeVito, I believe it was last year, the Patriots actually had interest in bringing in Tommy DeVito, but ultimately he ends up staying with the New York Giants as the place that he wanted to be. I'm sure at that time he thought that he could still win the starting quarterback job, but then unfortunately, the New York Giants, they added veteran quarterback after veteran quarterback after veteran quarterback to where Tommy DeVito is fighting to be quarterback 3, or I should say was fighting to be quarterback 3, quarterback 4 for the New York Giants. At least here in New England, no, he's not going to be the starter, but he's at least fighting to be quarterback 2, something he would not have been able to do with the New York Giants. Given the Patriots' recent interest in Tommy DeVito, it makes a ton of sense that he is a guy that they are now bringing in. Now, I'm sure a lot of you know who Tommy DeVito is, and not necessarily for his play on the field, but maybe more so because of the aura that has surrounded him. I mean, Tommy Cutlets and his agent took the NFL by storm when Tommy DeVito took over in 2023, when the Giants went on a late run with 3 consecutive wins. So if DeVito does ultimately need to start for you, should you expect much? No. Does he now become one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league? No. But Tommy DeVito has shown that he can win games in the NFL. Looking a little bit more at his 2023 season, he had an overall PFF grade of 62, which ranked 45th out of a qualifying 77 quarterbacks. He had a passing grade of 64.4, which ranked 39th out of 77 qualifying quarterbacks, and a rushing grade of 50.9, which ranked 69th out of a qualifying 79 quarterbacks. His passing yards ranked 41st out of a qualifying 77 quarterbacks. Passing touchdowns were ranked 31st out of a qualifying 77 quarterbacks. And his attempts ranked 37th out of a qualifying 77 quarterbacks. Now, the Giants are a team that has been very, very dysfunctional, but they do have a good offensive-minded coach there with Brian Daboll. The other thing, too, is that some people might think that the Giants have this terrible offensive line. At least in 2023, it wasn't that bad because Tommy DeVito had an average time to throw of 3.9 seconds, which ranked 9th in the NFL. The average time to throw in the league is about 2.4 to 2.5 seconds. So I do think that coming here to New England, at least early on projections, is that the Patriots offensive line would probably be a little bit worse than that, meaning that he would have to get the ball out pretty quick. In 2023, he had 5 turnover-worthy plays that ranked 31st in the NFL, and he had 4 big-time throws that also ranked 40th in the NFL. Trying to see if they give us a passer rating here for him, but unfortunately, they do not. The New England Patriots always like guys that have dominated them in the past, and clearly Tommy DeVito was on their radar in the past, and then I'm sure with just a week ago, him putting up a 147.5 quarterback rating against them in the preseason re-put him on their radar. Now, moving on here to Charles Woods, which is the guy that I think a lot of people want to know more about. The cornerback who was formerly with the Los Angeles Rams that the Patriots did just claim off of waivers. Now, a little bit about him. He's 25 years old. He was another undrafted free agent, just like Tommy DeVito, out of SMU, and spent the entire 2024 season with the Rams. He appeared in 12 games, primarily, though, on special teams. He got 169 snaps on special teams, and then played just slightly on the defensive side of the football with 13 total snaps. That season, last year, he recorded 2 tackles, and then, 2 tackles on defense, and then 1 on special teams. And I think that's more so what we should expect here from Charles Woods, is that he's a young guy that I think the team wants to work with. Now, he's not really going to give you much on the outside. He's only about 5'11", 191 pounds. So, like, he has the size, but he doesn't have necessarily that length to him. I think that he's a guy they can put on the outside if need be, but maybe more so a guy you do want to play on the inside, going to give you depth. And I think one of the biggest things with that Patriots final roster was, okay, they didn't keep as many cornerbacks as we recently thought. Teams on average usually keep about 6, 7 cornerbacks. The Patriots ended up having 5. So that was an area that was a little bit peculiar. And I even told you guys, I think they are going to add here, and that's exactly what they do. Now, with this addition, they obviously are releasing Javon Baker. And I think Javon Baker served in a similar role. And when it came to the Javon Baker experiment, him making or not making the roster, I told you guys that I think if the Patriots are going to keep a guy to be a gunner on special teams, one of their main special teams aces, they are still going to want that guy to be able to give them some type of reps, if need be, on the offensive or defensive side of the football. Javon Baker could have been a starting gunner for you, but Javon Baker was a liability on offense. Even if you had injuries at wide receiver, Javon Baker was just not a guy you wanted to throw out there. Charles Woods, on the other hand, can be a main core special teamer for you, but give you a few defensive snaps per game if need be. Now, looking at some of his numbers from last year's regular season, like I told you earlier, only had one solo tackle, really didn't do a whole lot, didn't get much of a look from him, so take this with a grain of salt, but his overall grade was 54.2, run defensive grade of 44.2, and a coverage grade of 65.3. So where he has shined outside of special teams has been in coverage, maybe a little bit more of a liability in run defense. Something we do know about, these linebackers and the secondary players under Mike Vrabel and Terrell Williams is that they want those guys to be well-rounded. Yes, your main priority is to be good in coverage, obviously, but they also want you to be well-rounded in defending the run, especially because these guys up front in the trenches on that D-line for the Patriots, they do have some questions in their ability to stop the run. Now, I think where he shined more specifically was in the preseason. And I think this was a guy that Rams fans actually wanted to keep onto the team from what I'm hearing. They wanted to see how this guy was going to develop. But unfortunately, an injury in the preseason is likely what got him cut here. Like I said, a pretty good start to his preseason, just throughout this past year's preseason, but he did suffer a concussion. And again, that is what contributed to his release. But in this year's preseason, he had 4 solo tackles. He was targeted 9 times, 4 receptions allowed, no interceptions, but had an overall PFF grade of 71.9. That run defensive grade, still not good. Again, that's the only liability part to his game on the defensive side of the football. 57.8 overall grade there, but a great pass rush grade of 84.2. We know that the Patriots like to do exotic things with their defense. They like to disguise their defenses. We're going to see safety blitzes, cornerback blitzes, and Woods could potentially be a guy that they use in those pass rush situations because that is where early on in his career he has had success. And then that coverage grade, still certainly not bad at 70.2. So again, I think with this, the reason that the New England Patriots move on from Javon Baker, they bring in Woods is because, again, he can give you snaps, not just on special teams, but can also be that versatile depth piece on the defensive side of the football. Even in the preseason, he was allowing 11.5 yards per reception. He had 3 missed tackles, but he was only allowing a passer rating when targeted of 60.4, which again is certainly not bad. This is a guy that I think was much better throughout the preseason than arguably any other of the Patriots depth cornerbacks that we saw throughout the entirety of August. If I had to guess what his role is going to be outside of special teams, again, I think he's going to be that depth rotational piece. He can play a little bit on the outside, but what I think this mainly is for is if Marcus Jones gets injured. Marcus Jones is really the only Patriots slot cornerback that they have. Now, they could throw a safety in there. They got a crowded safety room. They could throw Alex Austin as a big slot cornerback there if they want, but nobody's really taken or run away with that backup slot job. I think Woods would be a perfect guy that they can throw out in there in the slot if Marcus Jones ultimately does get injured. But that is going to end it all for today's video. The New England Patriots acquired 2 players off of waivers, one on the offensive side of the football, one on the defensive side of the football. But this is where I kick it off to you. What are your thoughts on these additions? Let me know in the comment section below. You guys dubbing this or are you taking this one as an L? Let me know in the comment section. Make sure to slam that like button because it helps support the channel so much. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for all your New England Patriots news. But until the next one, I appreciate you guys for watching and go Pats.